Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping headfirst into the gritty, objective realities of Robert Greene's controversial classic, The 48 Laws of Power. We're going to strip away the theory and visualize exactly how power dynamics operate in the real world, starting right at the beginning with law number 1.
Okay, let's kick things off with a paradox that's honestly a little terrifying. Think about this. Can being too talented actually get you fired? It sounds totally backward, right? But the truth is, being the smartest person in the room can actually be your single biggest liability. Let's look at exactly why that happens.
It all comes down to the simple fact that social dynamics are rarely, if ever, just about who's the most talented. It's really about power, perception, and the delicate, almost invisible art of making others feel superior. And that beautifully illustrates the core of Law 1, never outshine the master. Because this whole game of power, it's an amoral landscape. It's driven entirely by human perception, not just raw ability.
To see just how raw and unforgiving this rule really is, let's look at a fatal historic mistake. We're traveling back to 1661 France to examine the tragic downfall of Nicolas Fouquet, the exceptionally brilliant finance minister for King Louis XIV. Picture this incredible scene. Fouquet wants to prove he's absolutely indispensable to the crown, right? So he throws this massive, mind-blowing party at a chateau. We're talking lavish fireworks lighting up the night sky, an extravagant 7-course feast, the absolute works. But instead of impressing the king, well, it completely backfired. The sheer overwhelming spectacle of it all deeply bruised the king's ego. And the very next morning, Fouquet was arrested. That single night of showing off literally cost him his freedom for the rest of his life. Now, let's contrast that with a strategic modesty masterstroke. We'll rewind a bit to 1610 and look at the brilliant astronomer Galileo Galilei. He played the exact same game of extreme talent, but used a completely different, totally masterful strategy. The comparison here is literally night and day. While Fouquet triggered deep insecurity by hoarding all the glory for himself, Galileo took a totally different route. When he discovered the moons of Jupiter through his telescope, he didn't just brag about his own genius. No. He deliberately attributed the discovery directly to his powerful patrons, the Medici family. He made his masters feel comfortably superior, basically aligning them with the stars themselves. And the result? He secured lifelong patronage and total security.
Applying Law 1 today. You might be sitting there wondering, okay, how do kings and 17th century astronomers relate to my modern corporate boardroom? Well, let's translate this ancient history into today's aggressive power playbook, because the exact same human wiring is still very much at play.
Modern power players have actually evolved this into 3 distinct escalation steps. Step 1, you start out professionally neutral. You strategically frame every single win as being for the good of the company, never for your own ego. Then, step 2 is the slow burn. You systematically outshine your rivals, but you mask it with overwhelming friendliness. And finally, step 3, the swift takeover. You play the perfectly loyal subordinate, right up until a real weakness shows in leadership, and then you pounce, and suddenly, you're the master.
If you want a real-world visual of this, just look at this textbook Swift Takeover by Italian politician Matteo Renzi. Back in late 2013, he's publicly denying he even wants the top job, quietly building his hidden power in the background. Then, on live TV, he literally tells Prime Minister Letta to stay serene. He creates this total false sense of security. And then, just weeks later, he ruthlessly forces Letta out. It's practically a political thriller playing out in real time. To understand the strategist versus the psychologist, we really have to look at the human element. To truly navigate this sort of civilized warfare without becoming the victim, we've got to dissect the raw human emotions driving these interactions. Because when you strip away all the complex machinations and corporate jargon, the whole game boils down to managing one single unpredictable thing: insecurity. We're talking about that raw, deep-seated feeling of inadequacy, that sudden twinge of jealousy and fear triggered in your bosses or mentors the absolute second they realize you might just be outgrowing them. The real secret here is that mastering power requires you to perfectly balance 2 completely different profiles. You have to be the strategist, making those cold, calculated moves to acquire power and win the immediate battles. But, crucially, you also have to be the psychologist. You must actively and empathetically manage your superiors' egos to make them feel secure. That's how you prevent long-term resentment. The strategist wins the battle, sure, but the psychologist, they survive the war.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think about your very next workplace interaction.
When you walk into that next meeting, are you going to just blindly react to these unspoken dynamics? Or will you use what we've unpacked today to actively take control of your own trajectory? The real question is, are you just playing the game, or are you finally ready to intuitively master it and write your own rules?